Property Podcast comes to you with thanks to our friends at Trafalgar Square Finance, leading independent specialists in mortgages and all types of property finance. Whether it's buy-to-let, development or bridging finance, Trafalgar Square can help you organise your funding for your next property project. Exclusively to listeners of Your Property Podcast, Trafalgar Square offer a free one-to-one consultation. So whether you are a portfolio landlord looking to raise funds on your existing portfolio, or if you're just starting out and want to find out if you are eligible for a buy-to-let mortgage, Trafalgar Square Finance can help. It's easy to book with one of their experienced consultants by simply visiting yourpropertynetwork.co.uk/finance. You can find this link in the show notes for more details. Hello and welcome to Your Property Podcast. My name is Michelle Cairns and with us today we have got Ant Lyons. Hi Ant, how are you doing?
Hey, good morning. Hey there.
Good to see you. And today is a very special podcast because it's our 100th episode, which is very exciting. So we've been going for a few years now and doing 2 podcasts every month. And here we are at number 100. So it's really exciting.
Happy birthday to us.
Happy birthday to us. So I'm sure everyone's familiar with Ant, the co-founder of YPN. And Ant, we started the magazine 12 years ago now?
1 billion years ago, I think it was. So, 14 and a half years ago. So 2008. And, I started off doing all of the interviews. And, over the time, obviously the team has evolved and people who were far more gifted than I kind of write the articles and stuff like that. But I'm still very much in the thick of it. And, I love listening to the podcast that, you do most of the interviews on that. I like learning about people who are in property and how they make money from it and the successes and the mistakes they make along the way, which is what we're all about.
Yeah, absolutely. And just the variety is just incredible. The amount of, different people across different industries within the property world is fascinating. And I know you, like myself, are just a lifelong learner. And it's just, you never know everything. I know it's a bit cliche, but there's always things to be learning all the time, whether it's golden nuggets that you like, the little pieces of the puzzle that are missing, or whether it's just moving with the times and things that keeping your finger on the pulse about what's changing. There's so much to learn.
Yeah, and the thing I've used this line 10,000 times over the last sort of 14 years. In that, what we do is essentially we're nosy, aren't we? We want to learn what someone else does, and those people are ordinary people achieving quite often extraordinary things in property. And a proper cliche, but a cliche because it's true. I think everybody we speak to, they're normal people. Most of them weren't born with a sort of silver spoon in their mouth. They didn't have bucket loads of money to start with. And today we're kind of turning the tables on the podcast, and we thought we might look at, talking to you about kind of, because many people listening to this, they might not be familiar or completely familiar with your story. So we can recap on that and then talk about some of the lessons that we've learned in the last 100 episodes. What an achievement. So,
yeah.
Do you want to recap?
Well, it's changing all the time. As you know, I've got an 8-month-old baby, so that's the latest addition to the family. And to go from 8 years ago when I started out from my very first meeting, so much has changed. And even just working with the magazine, I think the past 3 years, my learning and just understanding of everything that's to do with property across all different strategies has just grown exponentially. From doing, I think there was 1 week where I did 14 interviews in 1 week, and people often think I work I say work for the magazine, and people assume it's kind of writing articles, but it's mainly just interviews every week. So it has been absolutely fascinating to just just kind of get all those different experiences and get a little insight into different strategies.
We were talking offline previously, weren't we, about one of the problems of doing that is that you talk to all these people, and I do the same, and you go, wow, what that person does is really cool. I want to do that. I'm going to do that. So whatever you're doing in property at the moment, you talk to someone and they're doing really, really high-end holiday lets, or they're developing new builds to sell. and they're passionate about what they do,
Yeah.
and that passion rubs off. And so every time I finish an interview, my business partner Mike, I say, Mike, I've just done this interview. We need to be doing this, and that it's. Do you find the same?
I'm exactly the same. I'm terrible before I come up and I'm saying, right, okay, we need to be looking at this. And this is really hard for a creator like myself who's just full of ideas all the time. It's got to be very disciplined to be thinking, okay, what is it that I actually do want? And I think seeing so many different people and seeing everyone, all those people having successful businesses, all these strategies work. And it's just about deciding which one you want to go for and which one works for you as well. So I think that's been the case for me. And I definitely have, I like to call it diversified portfolio rather than kind of just focusing on one strategy. And that I like that. It's worked for me. I like the fact that I've got some HMOs, blocks of flats, just single lets, family homes, single flats, or one commercial unit. And I like the spread. And, especially, during COVID and things were really uncertain, that kind of gave me a lot of peace of mind to know that, there was some tenants on LHA, some professionals, and just across the board. So, but having gone through all of these different strategies and different ways of purchasing, and I think one thing for me was always about the creative finance, because I never had that the big pot of money to start with, that I had to be creative from day one. So whether that was rent to rent or working with investors, joint ventures, or purchase lease options, those kind of things. So for me, I've always looked for those creative strategies, and I think even though there is an element of the shiny penny, also you can just it's about just collecting tools in the toolbox. So to me, it's all about whoever I speak to, how can I help them, how can I kind of create this win-win opportunity, and often you can't, but the more tools that you've got, the more you can help people. So rather than kind of having one strategy, to me it's just been about conversations, and I love speaking to people. I love to just try and solve problems. So it's worked for me. And then now I kind of think, okay, what is it that I really want? I've managed to get to a position where I don't need to go back to teaching, which was my former career. And I've got the choice. So it's all about choice. And I obviously I work a lot for YPM, but I really enjoy it. And it's about that choice, as well as having the portfolio, looking at the next deal, looking at the next project. So having that choice is a huge thing for me. And I'm constantly assessing that, constantly changing. And obviously with the baby, it's kind of working out what are we doing it all for. And I know
it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because I think it would have been easy to say, what has from all the interviews you've done and the many that I've done, what's the kind of key thing that has led to success with the people that we interview? And it would be very easy to say focus, focusing on one thing, and discipline. And actually, when you talk now, I think, well, that's taken a different kind of discipline, because you've done different types of deals, as have I, but it's taken the sort of discipline of everything you learn just being part of the toolkit. And it is difficult to refine it into what you want to be doing. So
I think it takes everyone works at their own pace and in their own style. And I think it's hard to kind of compare yourself to somebody else who might have a completely different type of personality or style to what their values are, what they want, what stage of life they're at as well. So I think just trying to understand yourself is really important. And I always say this when people are kind of overwhelmed at the beginning, because there's so many strategies, so many different things that you can do, and so many kind of strategies within strategies. Is just be thinking all the time about what you're trying to achieve. What are your resources like? How much time have you got? How much money have you got? How much what are your contacts like? So if you don't have money, do you have access to money? And if you don't have access to money, do you have access to creating those avenues through social media or networking? Exactly. So it's all about being resourceful. And for me, you just said there about discipline. To me, the discipline's always about just keep going, just keep chipping away, whatever you think that is. You try and kind of just do the best that you can with what you know, and that's all you can do. And then you get more information, and then you can refine and you refine and you refine. So and everything comes with a cost, and I think that's been a huge kind of learning for me as well. Is the HMOs, for example, we all know they are like more hassle than single lets, and service accommodation, it just, it takes more energy at the beginning to set it up. And so choosing a strategy that's right for you is really important, because at the end of the day, whether it's the cost of time or the cost of money, you've got to just decide which one that you want to pay.
So over these 100 episodes and your own investing and networking, have you refined what it is that you want from this?
Well, I've refined what I think my ideal, deal would look like the next one. So I think for me, where I'm at the moment, a nice block of 4 flats, somewhere local, a great purchase price with, good return on it for single lets within that freehold, with potentially the opportunity to split the titles. If there's an opportunity to uplift the value, great. That's the ideal. But deals that'll come along all the time, and I always say I'll look at anything if there's a margin and it makes sense. Purchase lease options are great because you don't have to just find the money for the deposit and the stamp duty up front. You can just sort of take it on and run with it for a few years and benefit from that. So we've met a landlord, and they've got 3 HMOs, and although it's not it's not really like our strategy at the moment, because we've already got them, we said, oh, we're done with HMOs now. Actually, they're all fully tenanted. We've already got HMOs in the same location. Really, realistically, we've got the system set up, so they should just kind of slip into the portfolio. It's not like starting from scratch where you're doing a huge refurb and you're trying to tenant it and you're trying to do all this. They're great locations. So so I think in the long term, if we get that one over the line, that will be a great deal. So I think thinking really long term as well now about I think it would take a lot to kind of go to a rent to rent now, because I just want the option to buy. It just makes sense long term.
For a rent to rent, great strategy starting out.
Oh God,
to
absolutely.
Create that cash flow that you definitely needed. So
I would go with
you evolve, don't you? You change what
you do. And like I say, if something came along, it was ideal location, huge rooms, really really well done inside, where I'm not spending any money on it, then maybe I'd say yes. If it looks like a great deal, but I'm not looking for it.
Yeah,
and that's the difference.
And have you sort of gone down a property avenue where you thought, what, actually this isn't for me? I don't want to do these types of deals.
So I've done 2 big development projects, and they were really quite stressful.
Yeah. Amen to that.
Yeah.
They are, yeah.
That was a whole other world, to going from these rent to rents and dipping my toe into, where I'd only really just replace carpet and paint, to go to full on, developing a block of flats. That was a huge learning curve, which I'm really grateful for. And looking back, it has been a fantastic learning. But when you're in it, it was really quite stressful. But it was stressful because I hadn't gone through it. So I think now that I've gone through it, I might be I don't think I would get as stressed, because I'd know more. I'd be able to anticipate a lot. I wouldn't, working with utility companies, I think I'd just outsource that straight away.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, so, that's definitely one to get rid of.
Yeah. So I think again, if it was a great deal that had come across, but I'm not really looking at conversions. I think just at the moment, the way things are with trying to find, the builders that you've got a great relationship with, that are available now, and the cost of labor, the cost of materials, and the uncertainty in the market, I don't think that's the right strategy for me right now. So I think it's all about timing as well, and just making sure that you've got the right strategy at the right time.
Yeah, I would echo it. Having done a few sort of bigger deals, it's a very different environment, and I didn't really like working in that way. Like sort of standing in the buildings, talking to the builders about the work that needs to be done, rather than kind of conveying it through architect's drawings and stuff like that. The whole process felt slow and with very little grip on the costs of them just disappear, that budget just disappearing. So
well, on conversions, that's the thing. And people say, well, what's the the cost per square foot, square meter of conversions? On conversions, you just can't do that, because once you take the bricks off, or take down the walls, you just don't know what's lurking below or behind or above. So whereas new builds are a lot more straightforward in that. So I think understanding like seemingly small distinctions like that have really influenced, I guess, what I'm looking for. So, but you never know, I think. But just that the one I just talked about there, one deal earns more every month than I did in my teaching every month. So, looking back, was it worth it? Absolutely. And like I say, I've got there's a long-term game with investors. So to fast track what I've done, I've worked with investors. So a lot of the money kind of that comes in just goes back to investors as well. And in the future, I'll be buying those investors out. But I don't think I couldn't have done it without them. So that's a huge thing for me as well, working with other people.
So would you have changed anything? If you're going to look back on kind of 8 years ago and said, actually, do you know what, Michelle, younger Michelle, don't do that, do this, or do you think it was necessary to go through everything to get where you are?
Yeah, sometimes I look at that, because I think especially when I see new people coming in and they're saying, well, how quickly can I get out of my day job, how quickly can I do this? And I'm thinking, well, on the one hand, I've seen people absolutely go for hell for leather 6 months, and they've replaced their income, they're out of the day job, and they're off. So it can be done. I took a lot longer, and I guess it was right for me at the time. Otherwise, I would have done something different. But knowing what I know now, I think I would have got a couple more rent to rent. So I started out with the rent to rent. If I'd have got 3 or 4 more, then I would have been out of the day job quicker. And I think overall that would have been better for me, because then I would have had, more time and focus to just fast track what I was doing. But it didn't happen, and here we are. So it's all these things happen for a reason. I'm a big believer, and
I think it's funny when you start out as well, because I was thinking about this the other day, thinking, well, what was my grand plan when I bought my first investment property? And it was very straightforward. It was right, I've got a very small amount of money and I need to turn it into multiple properties. So buy either below market value and refinance, or certainly post credit crunch, buy, refurb, refinance. And then it was, okay, can I create equity? Each one needs to cash flow, a couple £100 a month, and then chunk of equity in it. And over time, can that chunk of equity get to 50 grand in each one? And if I do this 20 times, that's £1 million worth of equity in it. No one's going to give you £1 million. You've got to go out and make it, haven't you? So, and then I think, well, maybe I was quite cautious then. I was like doing one deal and then waiting till that one had done, and then another one. And probably I could have done 4 or 5 at a time, maybe.
But would you have done those with investors? And did you know how to work with investors back then?
Yeah, I did. I did some of the ones I did back then with investors, so I knew it. But it was just I think it was a risk thing. I took it very, very seriously, borrowing someone else's money. And, they were going to get paid back no matter what. So I think there was a large element of that I was cautious, perhaps rightfully so, because I took it, I wanted to make sure that they got paid back. So I didn't want it all to go wrong. But,
I think I was different because I didn't have the cash, and the bigger projects were just sort of way off my kind of out of my comfort zone, really, and I didn't really understand anything to do with developments. Whereas the rent to rent, and that I could understand, I could get my head around that, and I could see how I could do it. So it took me a while before the penny kind of dropped working with investors. So I think, again, in hindsight, if I'd have looked down that avenue more, then I might have taken a different route. But especially on the smaller projects, because I was borrowing money for projects where the cash flow was paying the investor back rather than the equity. So I guess I didn't really understand how those bigger projects worked at the time. So that's one thing looking back. I think two things. One is having a CRM, which I wish I'd have had from day one, because I do love networking. So it took me a while to get all of that done, but also just spreadsheets and understanding them, and maths was never my kind of strong point, growing up. And actually now I really enjoy the spreadsheets because I like working out the patterns, and I kind of get a feel for the numbers. And I've spent so long building my own spreadsheet and tweaking it all the time. I'm kind of like, okay, well, that, I can move that across, and that goes green when it's right, the right number. So that's really helped me get my head around, actually, this is how I can work with other people, because I need a project with two levels of profit, a profit for me and a profit for them. So it's been useful.
Okay. Let's talk about kind of, any standout podcasts that you've done. If you got any that you think, I really remember that one, because I find it really difficult. I do one interview and then I've sort of done another one, and the previous one I've sort of forgotten about. Yeah. So I can remember probably 2 or 3 at the time, and sometimes it's really embarrassing because someone will say, remember we did that interview, like 6 years ago, and I'm like, I really can't. I'm sorry, it's not you. It's definitely me. So
they do kind of blend, and especially I do all the other interviews as well. So in terms of ones that stand out, before we have this interview, I was looking through and thinking, okay, well, yeah, I like that one because of that, I like this one because of that. So I think there's 2 different types of interviews, 2 different types of podcasts. There's ones where they're how to do something, and I really love those because you're learning. And it's like, oh yeah, I never thought about that. That's really interesting. I could definitely use that. Like one with Neil Chowdhury, for example, about how to get your valuations, making sure you get the best valuation. Really useful. He's such a nice guy, and offers great value as well. And then there's the other ones that are more personal, and it's about their journey and how they've kind of changed their life around. And I really enjoy the ones where people are just honest, and they are not afraid to kind of be authentic and say, okay, this is how it really is, this is how it really was. And it's great to see people go through those struggles, and just they've had challenges, but they're still here. They've kept on, they carry on, and it's just about that determination.
I think those are my favorite ones, where people are honest about the adversity along the way, the hurdles, and how at that point you said earlier on that the determination was the really important bit. And I think that's where we learn, isn't it? Someone's honest, saying, look, I had this problem. It could have all gone pear-shaped for me at that point. I could have lost everything at that point, but this is what we did to overcome it. I love those ones. And then the other ones I really love are where people are really passionate and proud about what they've created, whether or not it's a one-bed holiday let or a hotel, and everything in between, where someone said, I had a vision and it didn't look like this, and now look, it does, and I'm really proud. I think people should rightly be proud of what they've created.
Well, one stands out like that was Mark Fitzgerald, and he just talks about he took voluntary redundancy, and he had 6 months to either make this happen through property or find another job, and he was so determined, and he's got such a passion, such an energy. It's so infectious, you can't help but kind of be inspired by it. And it just goes to show you what can be achieved when you really put your mind to it, and you've got that full focus. Obviously he had that time off, and he was just like went hell for leather on it. So
it's interesting. The stuff I'm interested in has changed over the years as well. So now a lot of my friends sort of outside of property are in corporate life, and now I love doing the interviews with people who were, I was in the corporate rat race and I hated it. And I either left and did this, or this is what I created whilst I was there. It gave me either I left or I started hating it less.
Yeah.
Which both of those things happen a lot. So, but 10 years, 15 years ago, I used to love sort of talking to the guys who were like literally 20 and done this. I was like, wow, how on earth did you do that? But let's talk about the podcasts that haven't worked. We won't name names. So
well, I think the ones that haven't worked, I think sometimes there's a not that they haven't worked, or that, you know, for me, maybe you just don't gel with kind of some people, you have different kind of styles of communicating, and that's, you know, that's sometimes a bit tricky to get the best out of them, and you're thinking, okay, what are the audience, you know, what are listeners thinking as well, and trying to ask them questions. And people, for me, where people are just so far down the line, you know, they've got, you know, hundreds of singlets, hundreds of, you know, properties.
It is difficult to relate to that,
and they've done it all, you know, in the early days where, you know, they've got all the equity now, and they've but, you know, so I remember asking somebody, so what would you kind of say to someone starting out who wants to kind of do this? And I, you know, reading between the lines, it's like, well, you can't really do that now, because I made hay, you know, years and years ago, and now I'm benefiting from it. So, but, you know, who knows what's going to happen in the next 20, 30 years of people. So it's just all about getting started. And I think it's really hard for people who, at the moment, who are just exposed to so many different strategies. It's very easy to get overwhelmed, and just that paralysis by analysis, where they just get stuck and think, oh, I don't know what area, I don't know what strategy, I don't know this. And I think I'd just say to people, just anything that looks like it works, just get started, just choose one, even if it's not, you know, perfect. I think especially people who've got a pot of money, and they've got this checklist, and they want, you know, they want the below market value, they want to add value, they want to you know, have a, you know, huge 20% ROI or whatever it is, and they've got all this checklist, and, you know, those projects do exist, but you might be waiting 2 years to find it, or you may never come across it. So I think it's just important for people to get started, because then they get their momentum, and then they learn, and then it's like, okay, this is easier than I thought, or more straightforward, and it's easier to kind of keep going then after that. But
I've found sort of in the interviews that I've done where I thought, oh, do you know what? I don't think this has worked. I've normally been sort of one of two things. Sometimes people will start talking with the sort of corporate hat on, and they'll go, we did this, or we at insert company name here did this. And I think, well, I don't really want to learn about the brand. I want to learn about you. You know, I want to learn about what it was really like for you. And then the other one is sometimes people don't necessarily want to admit that things didn't go smoothly all the time. And, you know, every developer, every investor I know has made mistakes along the way. And most of them who've been in it a while will be very candid about the things that they perhaps got wrong. And so I don't really like it when people say it always comes in on time and on budget, and nothing surprises me, and I'm the expert in every property strategy. I think, well, no one can know everything, can they? So it's funny, isn't it? Because, like, you know, there are mainstream TV programs that do cover investing in property, or whatever, and I watch those, and I think, yeah, I get it, you know, but they don't scratch the surface. They don't tell you how someone raised the money. They don't tell you the building works involved, or what went over budget, or, you know, the challenges of not getting finance and how to overcome that. You learn 1% of what the deal was really like. And I think with our job is to say, well, if I'm going to do this project, if I was doing this project today, I'm going to ask you everything about it, because I don't want to make the mistakes that you would have definitely made along the way, or what went wrong.
Well, I hope people kind of appreciate that's what I enjoy doing. I like asking those difficult questions, and when people, I can see them skirting around something, you know, 9 times out of 10 I'll just go in and say, so how much did that cost you? Or so the finance, you know, when did that, you know, that didn't work, why didn't it work, you know, what did you learn from that? And I think that's so important, because there's no point in us just giving, like, you know, the kind of glossy highlights of things. People want to know, like, what it's really like, you know.
I would say to Anna, this is why I don't get invited back to, like, dinner parties and stuff, because, you know, like, well, how much money did you make on that, you know, and, you know, or how much have you lost on that? And, you know, in real life, people are not used to discussing it in that way.
They're not, are they?
they get very uncomfortable.
Yeah, and also when you offer it, and you can see them kind of tentatively, the first question is always, well, how many properties have you got? And and when you start talking about the numbers, and then they're like, oh yeah, well, we earn kind of, we're comfortable, but they'll never kind of share their numbers. But it's fine. And I just think, well, I'm very kind of open about, if anyone asks, I say, okay, well, I've got a project and it earns £700 every month, and every month that all that money, we'll take off for maintenance and all the rest of it, voids, but that money just goes back to the investor. So for 5 years, that project, I'm not taking any of the cash. So even though it's part of my portfolio, I own it, it's a long-term investment, and I've worked really hard to get to this point. So you kind of got to balance it, because I think people have a perception sometimes that, especially if you're quite active on social media and magazine, that, you're at a certain point, or you've got a certain kind of, the lifestyle and things. And it's just, well, sometimes it's a long-term game.
I wanted to talk about the lifestyle side of things, because definitely starting out, it's a hustle, isn't it?
God,
lots of deals. Any businesses, let's be honest, any business starting out is going to be a lot of work for initially not that much return initially, but it grows over the time. So over the 8 years that you've been in it, obviously you've got Matty now.
Yeah.
You've got Rich. You've got a family. Do you successfully juggle the work-life balance? And what when you're not working, what does that look like?
Yeah. So we were talking about this the other day, and this deal with the 3 HMOs, and like why we were going to look at it, and should we look at it, and all the rest of it. And we realized that actually we love the hustle. We do, we enjoy the negotiation. We enjoy kind of just doing that deal and having those conversations and structuring, all the finance behind it and everything. So in terms of lifestyle now, obviously in the run up to having the baby, I was just trying to kind of systemize as much as possible. We didn't take on any projects beforehand. So last part of last year, and it was all about, getting the virtual assistants up and running in the team, and any kind of processes in place that we could. And it's it definitely feels very chaotic. And obviously, the benefits of working in property and working for yourself is the flexibility. I haven't had 9 months off. I probably had about 9 days off at the beginning. That's what it felt like. I was literally, you still need to answer questions. Let's be clear, there's absolutely no way I could just be sitting in baby groups all day long, singing nursery rhymes, and, Old MacDonald had a farm going around in my head all day. That's just not me. And I'm always looking for ways of trying to just keep my mind going, learning, and just, So I think in terms of lifestyle, other mums might have had 9 months off, but then they'd be going back to work. So I don't have that transition. I'm not going to be kind of going back to work 3 days and missing out on that time. So it's all very flexible, and hopefully, the long-term plan, I'll be able to pick them up from school, and we'll be able to take more breaks, and just, I don't know. We're, in terms of lifestyle, we're not, we haven't got fancy cars or anything like that. We live in a nice location, and we're happy with that. But a lot of it is about that kind of long-term wealth and the financial freedom, the choice to do things. So I think that's a big element in what we do.
Yeah. Okay, I couldn't agree more. I think, having the flexibility to, I know yesterday we're recording this, it's one of the hottest days of the year, maybe. Yeah. And, where my kids are a little older, they're 12, and I finished work at midday and we went paddleboarding with their friends and stuff. And you think, actually, if I was in corporate life in an office, that's probably not an option, really. So, that's what it means. And the flip side of that is you kind of work hard and condense the work into shorter time. So, okay, so what next on the podcast? So we were going to say, do you have a fantasy guest on the podcast? If you could interview anybody, who would it be?
So a while ago I was thinking, okay, let's kind of think a bit bigger, and I just read the Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss, and I thought, I'm just going to try. I'm just going to email them and see. And he was unavailable. To be honest, I think I could have pushed for it, but they offered me Brandon Voss, who was Chris's son, and I actually loved that podcast. And I'm still after kind of the Kim Kiyosaki's of the world as well, because I think Robert Kiyosaki, he would be fascinating. He would be really interesting, very very direct, I imagine. I don't know. I just like real people, you know.
Yeah, do you know what? I like real people as well.
Yeah.
It would be easy to sort of come up with a, name of billionaire developers, but the reality is that I'm not really interested in what they're doing. I want to know someone who's, I think, like a lot of us, we want to know someone who's maybe a bit like us. I think we could do. You said earlier on, one of the things, the type of podcasts you like to do as well is the kind of very practical advice, and I think having more of that going forward as well. So I know little things about that I've just done over the years, which I just know now, which maybe I didn't know before, was I've got quite a lot of mortgages with TMW. So as they come to the end of their kind of fixed rate, I could just go online and under a minute select the new product. I don't have to go through a broker. It's all done online. And I think the last time I did it, I saved like 500 quid a month on interest payments, and
Wow.
£6,000 a year, and it took me, of course, 3 properties, whatever it was, under 10 minutes to do. And little practical stuff like that. So we did an interview last week about, the changing EPC ratings, about small things that you can do to up the EPC rating, and the things not to waste your money on, because it definitely won't make any difference to the rating. And I was like, oh, that's quite cool, actually. Like it doesn't need to be a 20 grand spend on this building. So
yeah, that's interesting you say that, actually, because I'm listening to another podcast at the moment, and this person's got a few interviews. But I found myself gravitating towards the ones where he's like explaining something, and it's so rather than interviewing somebody about how they've done something, it's more like, okay, like you say there, just here's a quick kind of summary of just how you can kind of save some money, or how you can analyze a deal, or is it better to go with gas or electric on a new property. So it might be worth it. And if anyone's listening, please give us your feedback. It'd be great to know what you'd like to hear from us. If you'd like to hear more of the case studies, more personal interviews, or more kind of high profile guests, or more of the how to, do let us know.
Yeah, this is Your Property Podcast. That's why it's called that, isn't it? That's why the magazine is Your Property Network, because we're just here to sort of help guide it. It's very much, all the content comes from our readers and our listeners on the podcast. So
there's so much more to it now as well. I mean, I don't think a lot of people realize that we're expanded into the training as well. And we've got our serviced accommodation training, we've got our property development training as well, and more to come. So it's not just the magazine. We've got the app now, which is fantastic, and people can listen to all of the interviews for the articles as well as reading them. So, and a lot of people, they'll be listening to this on the commute to work, or while they're ironing or whatever.
Yeah, I always think one of the sort of saddest things is, and you've probably seen this from going to networking events, is people turn up at one networking event and they're full of enthusiasm and they're definitely going to do it, and then life gets in the way, and you never see that person again, or you never hear from them, and you think, I can understand it. Life does get in the way, but that discipline, and we keep coming back to it, really, that discipline, the sort of determination is definitely what makes the difference.
Yeah, you've got to have that kind of drive as well. There's no point in having discipline if you haven't got the drive to do it, and you're too kind of comfortable in the day job. You've got to figure out how to make it work. It works. Your job is just to figure out how you can do it. So, I mean, what do you think, Ant, about people who've lasted, the test of time, just because obviously people dropping off all the time, but those people who you've seen 10 years plus, they're still going strong. What makes the difference between those people?
I think initially you hit the nail on the head just now that initially probably a lot of people need some degree of discomfort, because if you're making plenty of money in the day job and you're fairly happy in it, where's the motivation to really make this work? And so I think there's that initially. And then I know I heard this thing a few years ago. If you I'm going to forget the guy's name now, but he presents this show called Dirty Jobs, yeah, and it's about people who do the jobs in America that, you know, are not particularly glamorous.
Right, okay.
And he said, no one wakes up one morning wanting to, you know, empty septic tanks for a living.
Yeah.
No one wants that. But he said, you know, you get into it and then you kind of, you know, you've got one truck and then you've got 8 trucks a few years later on, and you've built this thing and you've got the desire to succeed and you enjoy the business. You know, the initial job was probably not that pleasant, probably like most property deals to start with. But, you know, I think that getting a passion for the business and also maybe not letting it become 24/7, you know, having a bit of downtime and doing other stuff, is very easy to burn out and get fed up with it and walk off, you know, I think. So, so the people who sort of stood the test of time that I've known for nearly 20 years now, I think probably grew to love, you know, initially had to make it work, and then grew to love the business and concentrate on the things that they really enjoyed and were good at, and got other people. I'm terrible at managing properties myself. I hate it. You know, I'm probably like you, I'm a creator, organising for gas safety certificates, and that's not me, you know. No. So I was really glad to outsource those elements, and that's probably important as well. Do you think if you're going to stick in it long term, you know, you might have to do the bits you don't like to start with, but at a point, try and concentrate on the things that you're good at.
Yeah, I think being sensible as well and not scaling too quickly, because although it can seem very hard at the beginning to get going, sometimes for some people, once they do get going, suddenly there's a flood. You know, you get one landlord who've got 8 properties, and then suddenly you've got, you know, 80 tenants on your books or something. And that's, I think, the what I've seen is a lot of people get to a point where they have tried to scale too quickly. I think that's one thing that really kind of always kind of made me slow down when I got excited about a new deal, which every deal was exciting, right? But just thinking, okay, just slow down. Do I have capacity to do this? And if not, can I bring, you know, other people in to help me or whatever it is? But yeah, I think, you know, a lot of people, and they don't intend to, you know, if it has
there's no malicious intent.
There's no. I think it's very rare, actually.
But it's a house of cards, and there's too many deals, and
really, people got to be really careful of that house of cards, I think, and just, you know, make sure, excuse the pun, but building, you know, your business on that solid foundations as you're growing. So, you know,
and your reputation is everything in terms of that, isn't it? And
it really is, especially if you're on social media and you're part of them. You know, there's such a transparency now, and I would say to people, my reputation is worth more than all of the portfolio, you know, put together, because I
mean, saying that, it's an interesting thing you talk about social media, because as soon as you start talking about sort of projects or deals or whatever online, you will definitely bring a whole heap of people, trolls, who just will say anything about you, you know, like the worst words that you can possibly imagine. You think, my mum's reading this, and that, and you know, they don't know you, they know nothing about you. So you've maybe got to develop a bit of thick skin about those types of people as well.
Yeah, I think that's probably more on the developing side. People don't like developers, do they? The general public. I don't think
they like landlords very much at all.
That's true. I must be in a little bubble then. And I think, do you know what? If I see anyone doing that within my network, I'll just block them straight away, because God, you know, it's hard enough. You don't need all the other negativity and things. You've got to be really just steadfast in it, you know, and what you're trying to achieve. And I think I love that phrase that you're not in control of your reputation, but you're in control of your character. And at the end of the day, you know, you just got to look after what you're doing, that you're doing the right thing by other people, by yourself, just doing the right thing, and then people can say what they want after that, you know, as long as you know you're
a strong moral compass, you know, your own moral compass.
I think so, because, you know, you speak to a lot of people people just open up to you, especially if you've got a position of like respect within the community or authority. And I run the, you know, Chester Pin meeting and things, and people come up to you and say, you know, oh, I've got this amount of money and I'm not sure what to do with it, or you know, and these are people who you think, God, you don't need to tell me all of those details. I can help you without it. But yeah, and I always say to people, listen, I think you should just put it on the market, and get the best price, because that's the best thing for you. If that doesn't work for any reason and I can help you, then great. But sometimes you just got to be really frank with people and just think of what's best for them, because there are plenty of deals. We don't need hundreds of them.
I agree.
You want the fewest amount of deals with the highest profit. That's what I'm aiming for.
The most amount of money with the least amount of work. Really, that's what we all want, isn't it?
Absolutely. So. It's not as obvious, Ant, though, is it?
I don't know. That seems, I don't know. For me, it's interesting, isn't it? Like, I've got a lot of friends who the number of hours that they work is like a badge of honor. They're like, I worked 80 hours last week or whatever. And you think, that sounds like a lot, I don't think I'm lazy, but I don't want that badge of honor to say, I sat in front of a computer for 100 hours last week.
That was me, in my teaching, I worked all hours. I'd get there at 6 o'clock in the morning and be there till 6, 7, 8 at night. And I would just work and work and then there was the light bulb moment, thank God, one day where I realized that the ladder that I was climbing was just leaning against the wrong wall. And I'm like, what am I doing? It doesn't matter how many hours I work and how much I can produce. There's a ceiling to what I can earn. There's a ceiling to what I can kind of give here. I'm just going to burn out, which I did. But, I think now, just kind of realizing what is, is it worth it? Look at each project individually on its own, with its own merits, and say, is this really worth my time, my effort? And if it is, great, go for it. And sometimes it's worth it in the long run.
A friend of mine's a teacher, and we were around their house the other day, and she came home kind of late, 7 in the evening or whatever it was, and it was a really hot day, and she looked exhausted, and I thought, God, she is working really hard for, unfortunately, not a massive financial reward there. But
well, I never broke the £2,000 a month ceiling. I got a promotion. I think I ended up at 1,800 a month in my bank account, and it just wasn't sustainable. You get the holidays, but God, in the meantime, it's really, really quite a stressful job.
It's tough.
So I'm glad now, and especially during the transition, I was thinking, what? As long as I have the choice to leave, that will be, it'll be more manageable. And then once I left, I was like, right, okay, I'm never going back now. And the beauty of it is now I get to teach, and I, with the training programs and my own network, I get to teach property. So it's the best of both worlds.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, not a bad place to sort of end this podcast. 100 editions. It's funny, I've actually got a poster on the wall next to me of our first 100 editions of the magazine, and I think we are coming up for the next post will be 200 editions. So but it's been you do an amazing job with all the programs that you do for YPN and the podcast as well, and it's been nice to sort of turn the tables today and ask you about your thoughts over the last few years. So
it's been great to kind of share and just share the journey, as well as interviewing other people and being part of it. It's not like I'm just kind of on the outside looking in. So it's definitely in the trenches with you all.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you listen to the podcast and you think, well, maybe I should be doing a little bit more, maybe go to the website, yourpropertynetwork.co.uk. There's plenty of resources on there. You can steer yourself into getting the first copy of the magazine, or getting access to the app, or finding out about the total development of the total service accommodation programs. There's loads of stuff on there. And hopefully you'll be our guest in the future.
Absolutely, definitely. Well, and again, if you're not yet a subscriber to the magazine, then click the link in the show notes for your free 30-day trial.